True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, I want to dive into what Ruby Franke's sisters are sharing. They've spoken out. They're angry as well, but they're angry for multiple reasons, not including what has happened to their loved ones. Those kids, they loved them. They wanted to help. They tried to help. No one was listening. And so they spoke up because they are receiving a lot of hate. You know how people are. They're quick to share their thoughts, their opinions, sometimes without even always thinking it through and sometimes just assuming. And so there's a lot of anger towards the family. They're like, why didn't you do anything? But it's not always that easy. And so I want to dive into what we know, what they spoke out about, what other people, family associated with this case has spoken out and shared. And so we're going to dive into that. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Ruby Franke is a well-known social media personality and YouTuber who is known for her family vlogs and lifestyle content. She and her husband, pictured here, Kevin Franke, they ran a YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, where they documented their life as a family of 8, including their 6 children. The channel covered a wide range of topics, including parenting, homeschooling, travel, and daily family routines. And so they grew a huge audience. In 2022, the Franke family, blessed with 6 children who had been known for sharing glimpses of their lives through videos, they created a digital window into their world. That year would bring a huge shift in their lives. The couple, they decided to halt the uploads, a choice that was rooted in the years of criticism that they faced due to their strict approach to parenting. It was as if a storm of disapproval had swirled around them, urging them to retreat from the public eye. In that same very March of 2022, Ruby, she finds herself in a new venture. And so she becomes partners with Jody Hildebrand. Now, Jody, she has this Connections podcast, which is a platform that promises connections and conversations. Now, according to some, Ruby was seeking counseling, like family counseling, like parenting counseling, and that's how she came upon Jody, something along those lines. And so I'm still learning about who Jody is in this whole thing. Where this story does hit me is, number one, child abuse. I'm a big proponent that you gotta step up, speak out to end child abuse. And it sounds like that people were trying to speak up, but it also sounds like it might have been falling on deaf ears. And so the sisters have spoken out, a couple of them. There's 4 girls of the siblings, and 3 of them they all had popular YouTube channels. 3 continue to have popular YouTube channels. It's halted on producing content while they go through this whirlwind of drama that's surrounding everyone. More importantly, these kids are what we need to keep our eyes and our thoughts and our hearts focused on. And I think that's where this whole thing has to keep being reminded. What we are going to be finding out is how deep this thing is rooted, right? And so through this, Ruby becomes partners with Jody Hildebrand's Connections podcast, which again was something that promised deeper connections amongst the family, better conversations amongst the family, and so, which also has to do with parenting, right? And so through this, they're just learning and figuring this out, right? Here, Ruby and her newfound companion, they embark on an endeavor that they called Moms of Truth, which here is their Instagram and some of the content that they were producing on that. This place was a social media haven for where they fearlessly shared their unapologetic parenting advice, and they held fast to their conservative beliefs. And so this also had a lot of feedback, both I mean, my whole concern is how many people followed this stuff and thought this was the right way, the right approach. Because I'm sure there was a lot of people that were leaving comments about maybe some of their support in some of these ways. I don't know. I'm just wondering because their goal was to get other people to follow this type of advice, right? It was almost like a cult driven type environment that they were creating. And this is kind of like what the sisters were alluding to as to why they broke it all off. And so, as these virtual pages filled with their words, controversy brewed. You see, critics, they began to emerge, denouncing their viewpoints as not just offensive, but also accusing these creators, content creators, accusing them of harboring, bad ableist sentiments and maybe even some content towards not so positive remarks about other races and things like that, amongst other things. So this one shared truths, now it sparked igniting heated debate across digital landscape, and people were calling this in. They were calling child welfare. They were calling anyone that was listening because these people were documenting some of this abuse. And so the winds of change had blown and the family's journey took an unforeseen turn, which if you followed the first video, I'm not going to dive into everything. I'm just summing it up before we dive into the videos because there's no need rehashing everything, right? But on August 30th of 2023, Ruby Franke, she was arrested after her 12-year-old son knocked on the door of a neighbor's house with visible injuries, malnourishment, and duct tape on his limbs. So of course this was shock, and the neighbor calls 911. And so investigators, they found Ruby Franke's 10-year-old daughter in Jody Hildebrandt's home. This is where it's been documented that the whole family was seen here, even the kids working outside of the home. And the boy, he was taken to the hospital due to his deep lacerations from being tied up with rope and from his malnourishment. And that's according to the arrest record. Ruby's daughter was also there, and she was taken to the hospital. Since then, Ruby has been charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse. And if found guilty, she could face up to 15 years and $10,000 fine. So she has a lot on the line. And so far, her first day in court was not pretty. She blamed the kids. That's the mental capacity that this lady has. And now 8 Passengers, that was the name of the once popular YouTube page that Ruby and Kevin launched in 2015. Now, back then, it was a time when parenting channels were kind of really growing in a big way, should I say. And at this channel's peak, it was over 2 million subscribers. But a lot of what they were posting, it sparked criticism over the parenting styles that these people were choosing to do. In one video, she could be seen telling her sons that they would lose the privilege to eat dinner if they continued play fighting, which is very normal in families, especially amongst young siblings. In another, she said that her 6-year-old needed to go hungry from school because she forgot to pack and take her lunch. And she even says, hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch, because then she's not going to learn. That's what she says in the video. Now, I will say that I could remember times in school going without lunch. So maybe she's experienced that herself It's not a good feeling. But the fact that she would say this about her very young daughter, right? Like, how is this in your mindset, right? How is this your 6 year old? Your 6 year old. What is wrong with you, Ruby? And so you gotta stop and think. I get that you want to teach responsibilities, but at 6 years old, that's your responsibility, Ruby. What did Jody tell you that would make you think that's okay? I don't know, but we do know that there are a lot of bad parents out there. My When I was growing up, my parents were not great parents at all. So I know for a fact that there is a lot of bad parents. But my gosh, to go on video and document it, like, how screwed up in the head are you? Now, with the son, we talked about the son, how he had to sleep on a bean bag basically for 7 months. That's when a major turning point came, when the teenage son made a passing comment while on their video. And he says that nonchalantly been sleeping on a beanbag in a video that was in 2020 because he pranked his sibling. And I shared that in the first video what that was, so I'm not going to dive into it again. But Ruby alleged that they had given their son the option to sleep on a pull-out guest bed. I'm thinking she said that because this caught her off guard when he admitted that in video, because she kind of says, "Oh, they didn't know about that," something in the lines of that. But the tone in the video was kind of light, a lot of people laughing, but for the viewers, it set off a lot of alarm bells that something is not right in this family. And so concerned viewers, they started contacting the local CPS, Child Protective Services, and they even created an online petition created to encourage the CPS investigation of 8 passengers. And so her parenting techniques, it created a lot of outrage. People are not dumb and are gonna always sit by. That is I could have told her that if I knew her. Like, bro, what are you thinking here? How stupid can you be to do this to your kids? And how stupid can you be to actually try to document it and think other people are not going to say how stupid you are? So I don't understand were they making that much money that she thought, like, oh man, they tried to investigate once, they're not going to find anything again. So what is she thinking? But a lot of people spoke up. And so the outrage was going. The people were literally even flagging videos. And they were criticizing her parenting techniques, including about her 6-year-old needing to go hungry. Right? And so TikTokers, YouTubers, they created their own videos about the family, literally about how could this lady do that. And so in response to this controversy, Ruby and Kevin, they told the news, media insider, some accounts, that they just had malicious intentions and purposefully took the clips out of context, that they were purely seeking to throw hate. That was their only objective. And so that's what she said. That's what she said. She said a reasonable person would not have seen that video and thought she is a child abuser. Like, that's what Ruby tells Insider. And so you think about Jody. Here's Jody. She's supposed to be a life coach. She's the founder of Connections Classroom, which is an online platform which offers counseling courses. So this is kind of how they met, because Ruby was seeking counseling. That's what people are saying, family is saying about this situation. And so after the 8-passenger site was taken down, Ruby began sharing advice on connections with Jody. And so she even continued to cause controversy with these videos, including one in which her and Jody, they are discussing directives that parents shouldn't love their children unconditionally. I didn't even know you can feel different. Seriously, I didn't even know you can feel different. You mean to tell me, like, that's what their thought process was. Now, Jody, she's said to have been married to a man, Brenton Pugh, something like that. And he's the father of her two children. They get married in 1999, but 13 years later, they separate. And that's the last she has of a husband, is from what it looks like. And she was arrested on August 31st on charges of felony child abuse. Jody and the other one, they have yet to give any plea. They have not pleaded on this. They were supposed to have a court appearance, allegedly technical difficulties, and so they still are going to be in court. But two of the sisters have posted a video, and we're going to dive a little into that. Now, I do want to share that I feel like, in the interest of being open about it, I do want to share that. This is the wrong screen. Of course, I would do that. I do want to share that I am familiar with the ladies, in a sense that my wife has followed the sisters. She did not know Ruby Franke at all. She had no clue until I told her about this story. And so she didn't know about it, but then she kind of caught a glimpse of her, a still picture in a thumbnail by another YouTuber, and she was like, "That looks like Bonnie," and I was like, "That does kind of, I think that does look like her." And then my wife at first was like, maybe not," and I was like, "That really does look like her. Let's listen to it." And it was like, "That is Bonnie." So of course there was a shock factor involved, and to be completely honest with you, I'm a fan. I've watched it with my wife. I don't really follow vloggers myself. I'm not a big fan of vloggers, but, or should I say, I'm not a big fan, as like, that's not my interest. If I'm on YouTube, it's not to follow vloggers' lifestyles, but I love to follow it with my wife. Like, that's something that we do together. And so I have seen some of Bonnie's videos. Really, I could always remember commenting about her eyelashes being kind of long, in her videos. And so that resonated with, like, oh, wait, I'm familiar with her. And then come to find out that it's her sister. And so, of course, they've been kind of silent. She did put out a video previously. So this is her second video. And so she posted this, I think it was yesterday or the day before of this live. And it's titled, it might have been yesterday, because actually my wife, again, big fan, she said, "Bonnie posted a video, I am not my sister. I am not my sister's crimes." And so I didn't have a chance to really pay attention because I was on my way to practice. And so, of course, this resonates with my wife. It's going to resonate with me, especially if it's in this genre of true crime, because this is something that I dive into a lot, right? But in the video, Bonnie speaks, and right out of the gate, she says, "I know that my words will be used against me." She shares that because people are throwing a lot of shade at Bonnie, at her other sister and her other sister. They're throwing a lot of shade as to, why didn't you do more? You should have broke down the doors and went. You can't do that. You just can't do that. And so some people, they just get caught up in emotions and they forget reason. And hey, truth is, it's been very well documented that the family tried to get help. And eventually, there was nothing they can do. The relationship got really, really sour, and she dives into that. But I find it very interesting that right out of the gate, she says, "I know that my words will be used against me." Because they have been getting a lot of comments about their stuff. So right now, they haven't really been producing anything. And first thing that I want to say, that's what she is sharing, is that we have kept quiet for 3 years on the topic of our sister Ruby and Jody and Kevin and connections. See, connections plays a big role in a lot of the anger and that's going on between the family, where she did not have a relationship with them. And I shared how the parents did a video 3 years ago. It seems like that might have been the last Thanksgiving they've actually spent together. But even at that time, it was these family gatherings where they started saying something is not right about the way Ruby is parenting these kids, the way Ruby is approaching things. And so That's why we're diving into that. And in this, she says we have stayed quiet about this whole thing. We did not know what they were doing because, like we said, we were cut off. We did not have access to anyone. They had a strained relationship because of the way Ruby was approaching it. And she continues, she says, my thoughts towards Ruby and Jody and Kevin and connections that is, was all bull crap. Referring to connections. It was complete indoctrination of this thing that they created. I don't agree with how extreme they are on everything. And she's referring to their parenting styles, the things that they believe, what they were creating. Like I said, it sounds very similar to like a cult like thing they were trying to create for other parents. I'm just guessing that. She says in this video, I knew they were weird. I knew that they were off. Those are the things that we kept quiet about because what was I gonna say? What was I going to do? I was not going to come out and publicly say that I don't like my sister and I don't like what she's doing and I think she's weird. Now, I find that I feel like that. Exactly, Bonnie? I agree with you 100%. What is she supposed to say? They fought for these kids, and they're just aunts, right? And uncles when it comes to parents. There's not much. Right now, we don't even know where the kids are. They might be in child care. Other strangers taking care of them. They may be. We don't really know. We know they're not with Kevin. We know they're not with Bonnie. We know they're not with the other sisters. And in this, you have to wonder, like, they should be with family right now. This is a big family. This is a big family. And I believe Grandma and Grandpa Griffith, Bonnie, Ruby, sisters, parents, I believe they're in another country right now, I believe as missionaries. I have to ask my wife on that. She's not here for me to ask that. But because I've checked out their channel, which I'll talk about here in a second. But she's saying that we felt they were weird. That is what we kept quiet about. It wasn't until about a year ago when we were able to reconnect with Sherry again. Now, Sherry is the oldest daughter of Ruby. And she's estranged from them as well because she was treated like crap as well, basically. And so, but now she's formed relationships with Bonnie, with the other sister, and she's speaking out herself. And so that when they do this, that's when they start learning a little more about how they were living over there. And so they were able to reconnect with Sherry and start building a relationship. And my wife even commented to me about, oh, that's Sherry that she started appearing in their videos. She remembered that. I told you, my wife's a big fan of Bonnie. She loves them. She respects them. She's not angry about any of this. And they're like, to blame them. She's angry about what the poor kids went through. You know what I mean? Because she too, as a child, went through some abuse from her biological parents before she was adopted later. So this is dear to her heart. She's upset and hurting as well. But she's also hurting for Bonnie because she doesn't want Bonnie to take abuse. We don't know to the extent. And right now, they're not even allowed to talk about it according to law enforcement. They want them to please keep quiet about this. This is an ongoing investigation. So there's not even much that they can detail in this ugly matter. So we got to try to respect as much as we can, I think, anyway. And she says that, until we reconnected with Sherry, we kept quiet. We never came out and said anything. You guys saw us together, and those were little glimpses when Sherry was ready to allow us to show those glimpses with her permission. It was then that we were learning slowly bits and pieces of more, and that's where the part of being behind the scenes, we did everything that we could. We did everything legally that we could do. And this is where the next part that she dives into, this is where I'm wondering how come you didn't do more, because she says in this video, and Kevin, the one person that could have done something within his legal right was Kevin. We had zero contact with him. It was Kevin's job to check in on things, and he did not do so. When I say that Ruby and Kevin and Jody and Connections have been destroying our lives offline for the last 3 years, that is exactly what they've been doing, causing turmoil within our family. Us, we would talk in circles because nothing made sense. Notice how she is throwing Kevin under the bus here. Who's going to know more about Kevin and the role he played, what limited, because obviously they didn't have a good relationship, than her and the sisters? She says Kevin also plays a role. He hasn't been arrested. We don't know if he'll be arrested later. According to his attorney, which I'll share more here in a second, he didn't know. He didn't know. Well, you had to know more than you're even trying to get your attorney to say. And the fact that you did not fight for your kids, I agree with Bonnie 100%. You should have done more. And so she says nothing made sense of what they were saying or what they were doing, and it was off the wall. And as I shared with you 3 years ago, this is from the very first video that she did. So this is her second one that she just did yesterday. This is the first one, and within hours it was no longer up. I'm guessing she deleted it, probably because she got a lot of hate right out of the gate. Who knows? Because it was a fresh story, and but it was deleted within hours, from my understanding. It wasn't even up 24 hours. And 3 years ago, as everyone keeps saying, 3 years ago, you can see Kevin and Ruby. I believe that's them that I circled in this image. I circled it there. That looks definitely like Ruby and Kevin. Let me know in the comments if you think I circled the wrong people, but that sure looked like them. But then again, the sisters look all alike. Like, seriously, there's a little resemblance. And I think Ruby looks more like her mom than any of the daughters. And there was Thanksgiving in our garage, 30 people at one table. This is what bothers me a little bit, because if there's 30 people here and these kids are right now in child protective services, they're not with family, that would be heartbreaking as well. Because who better to help heal than your loved ones? I think. I don't know. I come from a broken family too. So, it's a little hard. I'm learning as well. But 3 years ago, and they haven't been in that, they literally haven't been in any other of the kids, any family content at all. And so I noticed that. And from what I understand, she caused a lot of pain for her mom as well through all of this. And so she's sharing in the video about what was going on. And she says we couldn't make sense of what they were doing and why. Bonnie says they want to blame someone. There's only one person that could have helped, and he didn't. What he was doing all that time when him and Ruby were separated is beyond me. I will not let Ruby and Kevin and Connections and Jody take one more thing away from me. And that was her declaration that we're going to get back to creating our content. Her mind has been focused on the home that they're building. They can't let this go. They just need to pray. Or I don't know. She didn't say anything about prayer. I don't know. But she did mention that the kids, she wants the kids to get better. And so we're going to wait to see what happens here. But her sister also went to it after Bonnie posted her video. And so Daru Crew Vlogs, which again, my wife follows her as well. She puts my side of the story concerning my sister, Ruby Franke. And so she speaks after Bonnie, and she shares, I get into, but the past few weeks have been extremely hard. Not only did all that happen with Ruby, but I had just moved to a new state, and Landon had to go back to Utah to finish up his dissertation for his degree. And so I've been settling into a new home with the kids without his help, and all this fell down. And so she's sharing that she's literally had not even had time, the physical or emotional capacity to address anyone, nor does she even feel like she needs to address anyone. But she's sharing, here we are, 3 years ago, Ruby, everything was great. It seemed to be fine anyway. We were typical family. She was getting some therapy counseling because their family needed it, which I think is great. Which that family counseling is Jody. Okay? I think you need to get it from a great source. Read the reviews, Jody Hildebrandt and her website or therapy style. I don't know what you want to call it. Connections was not a great source. That is what she is sharing. So she was led to Connections to get her counseling, get her help, and she is saying that was not a good source. And she says we all saw it. We all felt weird. She uses that weird word again about Ruby. And she says, this Jody lady, we weren't comfortable with it. We didn't like it. We didn't like the teachings Ruby was bringing to the family functions. And we were this close to telling her, if you come to our family events anymore, we do not want to hear about we do not want to hear what you were learning through Connections because we don't like it. And we never did say that, but to her, but we thought it. 3 years ago, Ruby and I hung out, do bottling tomatoes, and then a few weeks later, crap hit the fan and she left the family. And she didn't even call me to say, hey, Julie, you're doing this and this. I don't like it. You're living your life in distortion. So I'm gonna have to take some time away from you. So she's saying that her sister just basically disowns her, doesn't say anything. And she felt like they were closer than that. But she said that literally she did nothing except call her mom. Again, I told you, she put her mom through the ringer and stress and hurt, and even caused her to have to go through some surgery, some heart stuff. And she says literally nothing she did. Call my mom and yelled at my mom on the phone for 45 minutes and accused her of things that were not true. It was almost as if Ruby had been making up memories from her childhood. She was trying to grab anything she could, and she would exaggerate on everything. So she started all of her lies back then, lying to everyone in her life. And even at that time, she's sharing that she's getting rid of all of her friends and family. And she says, I literally had no contact with her. She wouldn't respond to any texts or emails over the time that I tried reaching out. And so Ruby, is also disowning the family. It sounds like more like they couldn't get in touch with her because she was disowning them. And this was all about the time that she meets Jody. And her sister and the husband, through the attorney, speaks to this as well. And so she says again, she says what Bonnie says. She says, I was very fortunate to have been able to reach out to her daughter Sherry once she was an adult, and we were able to form a really close, strong relationship, which I am grateful for. And it was then that I learned more about Ruby, and it was then that Sherry had learned about lies that had been told to her. I feel like me and my other sisters have said, we feel like we've just been kind of floating on a cloud here. And that's exactly because everyone is in complete shock. And they're saying, both sisters are saying that there wasn't much that we could do through all of this. We had no idea of what was happening. Basically, I'm here to say that I had no idea what was happening. Like Bonnie mentioned in her video, we are not going to let Ruby destroy another thing in our lives. We have our platforms. They both allude to their platforms, their YouTube channel, basically, which Bonnie has over 1 million subscribers. I'm sure she wants to get back to it. It's their life, right? Everyone goes back to work. This is also work, if you ask me. That when she's vlogging her daily activities, her lifestyle, That is work. Everything that goes into it. And with a million subscribers, obviously that's a great income for that family. And she needs income. She's still got family to feed, of course, right? Get back to work. Get back to work is my thought process too. But they both shared how they try to bring brightness and positivity into other people's lives. And that's why we didn't talk about Ruby in our content for the past 3 years. Yeah, we try and show the highs and lows of everyday family and parenting, but Ruby's topic was not supposed to be part of that content, and it was none of your business. It was nothing that we needed to talk about, and I wasn't sure if her kids are maybe still watching these videos, and I didn't want to be not tactful and slander their mom and then have them watch those videos. That didn't sound like a nice thing to do either. And so that is another reason why we didn't talk about the subject of Ruby for the past few years on my channel. Exactly. What are you going to really say, right? Now, we do find that, of course, family's going to speak up. Family's going to share things. And so we had sister-in-laws, should I say, from Kevin's side. They spoke up, and they even shared that, like, put her away forever if she's convicted of child abuse, and her sexual assault allegations against her children are lies, because she said some really bad things. And so I think it's key that we be mindful that this is Ruby's ugly story about the terrible parent she is, but the big prayers that I believe need to be around those children, because they are going to be hurt for a long time. But even the family. Now, Cynthia, who you can see pictured here, she even shared, I don't know what to believe from her. I think she's lying. She's putting the blame on her 2 kids to validate what she did to her children. At this point, I think she'll say anything to save herself. Absolutely, right? Now, Cynthia, she's the wife of Ruby's husband, Kevin's older brother, Alan. And she said, we had no idea what was going on in the family. I don't think she should get out on bail. I do believe the allegations against her, after all this, she should be put away forever if convicted. That's what she shared. Now, Jennifer, who is married to Kevin's brother, another brother, Aaron, she said, Ruby isn't really my cup of tea. I've never really liked her from day one. She always thought she was better than anyone she's around. If you look up narcissist in the dictionary, there will be a picture of Ruby. That's the word that came to my mind about her as well. And Jennifer, she said that Ruby had always been a super strict parent. That's what she was sharing. She even shared one story. After having dinner, my kids grabbed some snacks to eat. They offered some to their cousins, Ruby's kids. She wouldn't allow them to eat any of the snacks. Then Ruby had the gall to say to me, I just can't believe you allow your kids to run amok in your kitchen. I told her it's my house and my kids. So that's what they're sharing about this. And, Jennifer even says she's very pious. I couldn't wait for them to leave. I think that was the last time I saw her. And you always got to take these type of comments with a grain of salt. You never know who just wants to be out there, share things. Obviously they didn't say this to my ears. I'm getting this through the media. And so I think it's key that you always got to take all these things with a grain of salt. But they are saying, put this girl away for the rest of her life if she is convicted of these miserable, terrible crimes. Because I don't even understand how anyone can do that. I just don't understand. I don't. But again, this is not about me. This is about these kids. Because at the end of the day, these kids deserve justice, and they're going to need a lot of healing. Now, Kevin, his attorney shared a little as well. And he says, if you read everything that's in the media, Kevin's getting raked over the coals. That's what he shared with, I believe, is a correspondent of Law and Crime. I hope I'm right. I forget. Shoot. But what people don't understand is that he was trying to preserve his marriage. He was taking direction from her. She's the one who asked him to leave the house and indicated that in order for him to be able to get back together with her and be a family, that she was requesting that he leave the home and that he not contact her or the children. She later told him that everything was blissful at home and it was so much better without him. That's what she shared to him. But here is the truth, at least in my thought process. Why was he not fighting for his children? That should have been the main focus the whole time. That's my thought process. Because why would you even want to stay away from your children? Why would you think that, oh, if I stay away from my children, that's going to help me get my wife back on good terms? Obviously, someone was in her ear, but that is my thought process in that matter. And think about that. Like, if he's saying that, which he continues on other things, but like he continues emotionally, she was controlling him. She was controlling him because he wanted in, she wanted to do something. We don't really know. And Kester says because she knew how much he valued their marriage and valued their family, and it was his desire to be able to get back with the family and preserve his marriage. So he was not going to see what's going on. He's not going to, I mean, come on, you're going to tell me that no one called him and said, hey, something's not going on. Something's going on at that house. It does not look right. And look at the videos. Come on. These were things that we're talking about in their 8 passengers days, right? This 8 passengers video content, the 2 million subscribers was based on what him and her built, not just her. And so he's very much a part of that. I don't understand how he hasn't been arrested. But again, everyone gets their day. We do know he has not been in a home in a year. So if a lot of this started happening, because they even said, one neighbor even said, as soon as he was out of the home, all of a sudden their school habits changed. And so there could be very much a lot of truth in this. At the same time, the only thing that I am definitely blaming Kevin for is that he should have been fighting to see his children. Come on. You failed miserably in that department. Like, how did you not? Now, granted, I'm not dad of the year, so I don't want to play that. But at the same time, to each his own. He needs to be doing his thing when you have a lot of kids involved. And your wife is telling you to leave the home. And your wife is telling you to stay away. Like, life is blissful without you. You're going to just stay there. So again, he's going to get his day in court. I don't know if he needs to be facing as much as she is, because everything that's been documented for the most part is on her part, her words, things that she was taking accountability for, including that the teacher texts her about her 6-year-old daughter not having food today. Obviously, the teacher thought that was important enough to message mom. That kid does not need to be going 7-8 hours without food. That's disappointing. Very disappointing. And so he says Kevin never had any reason to believe that his children were being abused. And if he had even one inkling that his kids were being abused and that the separation wasn't for any other purpose than to figure out a way between him and Ruby to reunite their family, he would have been down there in 2 seconds. Did he not know about the 7 months that his child slept on a beanbag? I mean, come on. Homeless people get to sleep better than that. So you got to stop and, I think anyway, at least out of their car. But I would think that throughout this, you're going to have to think like, what? Come on. Why wouldn't you have done more and fought more? You know, like, come on. You know, I think that's key to really own up. You played a role. He played a role. And so I think it's key that we understand exactly what we're sharing here. And with this, you know, Ruby Franke, We'll see what happens next. But Jessie Hildebrandt, which is Jody Hildebrandt's niece, she was in the news sharing about Jody's ways. And of course, Jody, being a self branded therapist, she's someone who thinks that she has all the answers when it comes to parenting, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to conversation. And Jessie Hildebrandt, she appears on Mormon Stories podcast. And she was even claiming that her Aunt Jody, that she herself was emotionally and psychologically abusive to them when they lived together about 10 years ago. So that's who Jody is from a different perspective, from a different point of view. And Jessie says she believes that if you are angry, depressed, or anxious, it is a result of shame, and shame is a result of sin. That's what she shared about that. And with that, that's like, okay, you really do think that this Jody lady really thinks that she has all the answers. And Jessie says that to Jody, mental health is a result of sin. That's what she was sharing. Everything can be brought back to shame. That's what Jody was about, referring to Jody. And she had this parenting advice website and her YouTube channel with Frankie called Connections. That's where a lot more drama came from that I shared earlier. And, here we are, like, finding out so much more. There's going to be a lot of stories that keep coming out of this. Now, Jessie shares that I've never met Ruby, but the things that she is saying and regurgitating are very, very similar to me. That's what Jessie said in a separate interview that she did with KUTV2, adding that they were blindfolded, duct taped, and sometimes placed in severe isolation for 12 hours a day. Now, there's also said to be in Jody's garage, underneath Jody's garage, there was like a police call that sounded like there might have been a panic room underneath the garage that they found, not knowing whether the kids were in there, not knowing if the daughter was still there when the 12-year-old boy escaped. But we don't really know all of that, but we do know that they were found in a bad situation. And so could this be something like Jessie was describing, being placed in a severe isolation for 12 hours a day? Because if right now they were going malnourished, hungry, the kid was asking for food and water, Jessie, I truly believe, is speaking some truth here. I truly believe she has an idea of what these kids went through, because it sounds like she might have gone through something like that from her Aunt Jody Hildebrandt. And she shares that the philosophies and the therapeutic modalities that she is using are Jody's, and these are not new. This is a pattern. That's what Jessie shared. Again, separate interview from the Mormon Stories podcast part, but that was some of it as well that I shared in the beginning. And so what happens next, we're not too sure. But my friends, the only thing that I want to leave you with is these kids did not deserve this. And here is the truth. A lot of us probably come across things that we don't always speak up about. We think that's their business. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I want to remind you, step up, speak out to end child, you know what? Because they're our future. And these kids, for example, they're going to be feeling something on their heart, in their minds for a long time. I can assure you, things from my childhood that because of what I went through, if you follow my channel, you've heard it a few times. It is rough. And it doesn't really leave. Maybe as you get older and you start gaining your own wisdom in life, maybe that helps put a little more distance. I feel like sometimes that happens on some things. But at the end of the day, it stays there a long time. And it affects different aspects. You don't always know what it affects of your life. I can look back and think, my gosh, I bet you that's from my younger days and having that moment. And so, my friends, these kids are going to be going through some stuff. So please, if you're a person of prayer, pray that they find healing, they find love, they find forgiveness, because They're gonna be hurting. But they should never be back with Ruby Franke ever again. And Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt, if they are convicted of what they are said to have been doing, they should never see the light of day. These are, you know, I just firmly believe that they should be locked away. I do. I this is one of the worst crimes you can do without killing someone, if you ask me. So when you're hurting children, you're hurting the world, in my opinion. I truly believe that. My friends, I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. Until next time, my friends, speak up, speak up, speak out. Be safe, be careful, be aware. Speak up. Peace.